fact that so like, would wise giving that's planting the correct seeds have that, like, would those thoughts be in your consciousness at the point of giving? If it's like the best possible way of giving.
Yeah, like, do you have to think all 7 steps every time you give to a beggar?
Right.
Or are you doing something wrong if you leave out step 4 when you give to a beggar, right?
Right, well, it's not so much that it's wrong, but like, to give with the most wisdom, it would be with those thoughts in mind.
To give with the most wisdom, you give with an understanding of emptiness. That's wisdom. That's the most wisdom, right?
True.
Yeah.
Touche.
All right.
That's safe.
So, I mean, frankly, if you want to know how you would give in the most powerful way possibly, you want to collect the most powerful karma through your giving. And the highest way to do that is to think, maybe this is a holy being that I'm giving to. This is actually a blank screen. This is an empty object. This is potential. There's something here which I'm perceiving, which is arising and appearing to me as a dirty, smelly beggar, when in fact it doesn't have any identity in nature from its own side of being a dirty, smelly beggar. In fact, I could just as easily be seeing it as a divine being right now, but my crappy karma gives me a smelly, dirty thing. And if I think about it as a divine being and offer to it as a divine being, then I've collected that karma for the future. Right? So that's the most powerful way to engage in giving. Since you asked.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, where were we? We're on number 5. Number 5. So Ninjay Chenpo. Ninjay means compassion, and Chenpo means big. Nin means heart, and Jay is king of hearts. So, what's the difference between love and compassion, right? Love, in Buddhism makes a distinction between love and compassion. With love, you're giving, right? Love is this open-hearted giving thing. It's like I'm pouring forth from my heart. I'm pouring forth and giving out of love. And compassion is recognizing someone's suffering and recognizing someone's problem. I feel sorry for them. I feel bad for them. I feel ashamed that they're suffering, right? That's compassion. And so, step 5 is you really want them to be free of their problems and their sufferings. It's like, how can someone enjoy a nice meal with a toothache, right? They don't. If someone's got some kind of serious suffering going on, they're not going to enjoy the nice thing you gave to them, right? It's like somebody who's got a wicked killer headache, and you're saying, "Oh, let me read you this poetry," It's not gonna work, right? It's not gonna have the desired result. So how do you help? How do we help other people eliminate their suffering, right? Ideas? Thoughts? Suggestions?
Teach them Dharma.
They have to have both, right? They have to eliminate the causes of suffering. They have to eliminate the true causes of suffering. They have to stop collecting negative karma, right? Of course, you also want them to not have a toothache and have a nice Indian dinner, right? But, if they continuously just collect the causes for their own suffering, you're not really helping them if you're just taking them to the dentist and leaving it at that, right? So this drive towards bodhicitta involves really feeling like some deep, heartfelt wish to end their suffering, really, ultimately as well as conventionally, right? On both levels. So, and that means you want everyone to get enlightened, basically. You could say, look, I'll teach them to collect virtuous karma, I'll take them to the dentist, but really, they have to be responsible for themselves in the end. If they're going to not have suffering, they've got to stop collecting negative karma, right? They've got to get enlightened. So the only way for everyone else to end their suffering is that they get enlightened. Nobody's going to end their suffering unless they're a virtuous being all the time, right? So you see how this flows, right? There's a sense of like, oh, I want them to have every good thing. What have we got so far? So far we've got like everyone's exactly equal in being my best buddy. that ever was, right? Based upon infinite past lives, everyone's been your best something, right? Same status, right? And so based on that, you think about all the great stuff that they did in that relationship. You know, they, whether it was a mother or a partner, you know, all what amazing things they did, right? What flows from that? Somebody does some good things for you. How do you feel? What might you do?
You want to reciprocate.
You might treat them nicely. You might reciprocate, right? You might think, let me pay back their kindness, right? And then, you know, when you're paying back their kindness and you're remembering all the good things they did and how special they were, then it naturally flows from that you really want to just do everything possible for them. You want to, you know, treat them in the best possible way that you can, right? You want to have them, like, everything that you can possibly help them have, right? But then what flows from that? Well, you don't want them to have any suffering. I mean, how can they possibly be happy if they're suffering? You don't want them to have any suffering, right? Yeah.
It seems like a bit of that point is about generation of kindness due to someone else being kind then to you, but the point is more about recognizing the kindness and then acting on that, not using another person as a cause for me to then act.
Yeah, could you skip the first 3 steps, for example? I mean, I think is what you're saying, the first however many steps, right?
Well, not quite. It just sounds a bit like, you know, we act in reciprocation versus, you know, our own direct generation for sake of generating kindness, because kindness is awesome.
Because it's a good idea in and of
Yeah.
itself, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you're up at level number
I'm at
4 or 5.
No, I feel like I'm at 3 though, paying back kind of.
Okay, 3.
I suppose I'm just
Okay.
biased against the word payback.
Well, but I think that what you're saying is true, that most people do have kind of what you might call a spontaneous impulse to kindness
Yeah.
at times towards certain people.
Especially when the generation has been outwardly applied
Right.
toward us.
Yeah. So I mean, I very much agree with you that it does just happen seemingly, you know, out of the blue, which is past karma right thing. But the point here is if you're going to really be a bodhisattva, it's going to apply to everybody,
Right.
not just the spontaneous occasional.
And just see
Person here or
kindness,
there.
even when kindness doesn't obviously exist. Doesn't, well,
Well, what happens when the, you know, what about the
It's
people?
like perceptive.
What about the people you don't like?
right.
You know, what about the people you've never met? You know, I've only met such a small fraction of beings in existence. You know, so the point here is really if you're going to have bodhicitta, it's not a selective thing; it's a universal thing.
I just realized what you were saying, and now it all came together because you're always paying back kindness because everyone has been your mother, and there's always kindness to see.
Yeah, it's not just about having a kind impulse in yourself in an abstract sense. It's about developing the impulse and the wish and the way of thinking and the way of being, which has this attitude towards everyone all the time. And if you don't think that everyone has that same status, then you won't do it towards everyone. You do it selectively, which is how we live. Hopefully. Right.
You can always think it as paying back kindness and not paying back a person who has been kind. It's the kindness itself that you're
That's a
being aware of.
pretty
That's
profound
really cool.
distinction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. In a broad, universal sense.
Yeah, because
Right.
you're thinking universally if you're thinking of past lives.
Yeah. And you know, so at this point, you know, at the 5th step here, it's recognizing that people's own minds are the source of their suffering. You know, their craving, their affliction, their wrong view, their negative karma. I mean, these are all the sources of their suffering, right? And so it's recognizing that you have to eliminate the negativity from their own mind, you know, by helping them to engage in the path and end all their mental afflictions and become enlightened, right? So like that. Okay. You know, you're freeing them from the tyranny of their own mind and their own negativity and their own bad thoughts, right? I mean, it's like our bad thoughts are pushing us around all day and making us miserable all day. And it's true of everybody, right? So, and so it's teaching them how to stop that, right? Showing them teaching them how to deal with the impure part of their mind and how to address it and how to stop the impure part of their mind from being in charge and dominating, right? So that's kind of an ultimate kind of compassion, right? So, first we had this intense love for them, and then we had this compassion for them. Okay? So, number 6 is Laksam Namdak, which is a great word. Laksam Namdak. It means ultimate personal responsibility. Laksam means like super personal willingness to take on responsibility. Right? Namdak means pure. So, it means that I will do it no matter what. I personally will take on this task regardless of whatever else happens. And some people just have this as a character trait. You can see it in them. It's like, whatever needs to be done, I'll do it. Doesn't matter if anybody else helps. Doesn't matter if anybody else criticizes me. Doesn't matter if anybody else gets in my way or tries to stop me or tells me I'm crazy or doesn't contribute or donate or thank me or, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. This has to happen and I'm going to do it. That's ultimate personal responsibility, right? The sense of there's nobody else but me that's going to do it. I'm not going to sit around and wait for somebody else to do it. Which, we often do. It's like, well, I'm sure there's like some great teacher somewhere that's going to like help all sentient beings, I'll watch TV tonight. So it's a sense of, no, I have to do it. No, I have to gain the realizations. No, I have to end suffering in myself and everybody else, right? So I'll take care of as many people as I can. And, I'm not going to wait for someone else to show up and like pitch in and do it as like a group or something, because they won't. People won't show up and they won't pitch in and they won't, pull you by the hand to help you do it, right? It's a personal thing. It involves personal responsibility, personal decision, right? It's like a resolution of the mind, right? And it's very close to having bodhicitta. It's like flirting with bodhicitta. It's very close. The sense of like, you like that far away from actually taking care of everybody, right? Because you're saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, right? And it's a very profound state. It's a very powerful state. Okay. And so, and then that leads to, number 7, which is where one actually achieves bodhicitta and achieves the wish to become enlightened as soon as possible to end all other beings' sufferings. Right? So, it kind of flops over, right? This sense of I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, flops over into actually being bodhisattva. Because if you've trained yourself, maybe think about these steps, you go like, okay, everybody's got exactly equivalent status. I want to, recognize that everyone has been great to me. And I want to recall all their kindnesses, and I want to reciprocate and pay back their kindness to everyone. And, they're amazing, and I love them, and I want to give them everything that I possibly can, every goodness and every happiness that I can. And, I don't want to see them in pain, and I don't want to see them suffering, and I don't want them to have all these problems. And the only way to stop that is to teach them to deal with their mind and control their mind and stop causing all their problems, right? And there's nobody else that's going to do that except me. Nobody else, it's not a proxy. It's not like, hopefully somebody else will do it someday so I don't have to worry about it. It's like, no, this is an issue and it's a problem, and I care and I have to do it. I have to deal with it. And then based upon that, you do it. You become a bodhisattva. So those are the 7 steps. So that's the process wherein we train ourselves, okay, to become a bodhisattva. All right. So, this, David, I think goes back to your point that you made a while ago, which is, well, is it just a thought that always has to be in your mind, right? And it's not one thought that's always in our mind, right? I mean, if you look at the course of our day, it's a cascading series of thoughts. Like, oh, there's a suffering person. Hey, they're just as important to me as my best friend right now. And what kind of suffering are they having? And what kind of goodness can I, in my heart, send out to them? Because look, let's face it, you're not going to walk up to a beggar and you're not going to say, I love you so much. Let me give you a big hug because you look like you need it. I mean, maybe you would, but that's not the point, right? It's a mental state. It's a mental capacity. It's a mental realization that one gains, right? That says, like, I want to pour love out from my heart to this person, and I want to this person to not have any mental or physical or emotional problems at all, right? And, nobody else is going to do it but me, and I have to get enlightened to do it. And then, the more you think those kinds of thoughts, the more you become that kind of being. And over time, one then becomes a bodhisattva. And it's just this progression, right? And it's just really that simple and that direct and that straightforward. The more you think about it, and the more you practice it, the more it works. And it's like anything. The less you practice it, the less you get good at it. You're not going to be a concert pianist unless you practice regularly. A couple hours a day will probably do it, right? Same with being a bodhisattva. A couple of hours of concerted practice a day would probably do it. It would lead to an upward spiral, right? So it's like that. I think there's a question of homework. Let me see. So the homework has to go through the 7 steps, and the description of the 7 steps. Is there a question on here? No, not a question on here. Okay. I think let's take a break there. And then when we come back, we can move on to emptiness and such. Right? Hopefully there's snacks.